Welcome, everyone. So nice to be here today at a really busy time of the year. So I appreciate you taking the time out of your diaries to be here. So I will get us started because we do have quite a bit to get through in the 1 hour. So welcome to the third webinar in the Centre's Innovation in Education series. This webinar series is a collaboration between the Centre's Early Start Bright Future project, the Out of Home Care Education project, and the Raising Expectations program, which is where I work. And it's really about showcasing innovative programs, research and thinking in the education space. And today's focused on peer mentoring. So today's session has been organised by the Raising Expectations team, and it's focused on how peer mentoring can support young people and also enhance their engagement in education, which is really important. Raising Expectations currently has 2 peer mentoring programs aimed at young people with an out-of-home care experience, Game Changers and Level Up. We know how important more informal relationships are in supporting young people's development, and we hope that you find the session interesting and walk away with a few ideas about how you can link young people in your lives to mentoring. So before we get started, I would like to acknowledge that we're all joining on Aboriginal land today. So I'm dialing in from Wadawurrung country in Ballarat, and I'd like to pay my respects to Aboriginal elders past and present, as well as First Nations people joining us today. I'd also like to acknowledge that sovereignty was never ceded, and this always was and always will be Aboriginal land. So I'm excited to introduce our panelists to you shortly, but first I will quickly go through the session outline. So in a minute, I'll hand over to Deborah from the Village Response Collective, who will provide us with some of her reflections on peer mentoring for young people, which I'm really looking forward to, Deborah. And afterwards, we'll break into a panel discussion exploring the panelists' work and experiences in the peer mentoring and mentoring space. I will also just briefly run through some housekeeping. I'm pretty sure everyone's used to this by now, but if you're not, please put yourself on mute so we can hear our speakers talk easily. If you have any tech issues today, please firstly try leaving the session and coming back again, because that usually resolves any issues. But if you're still having problems, you can use the chat function to private message Lani Avalu, who is our tech support today, and she can help troubleshoot any issues that you're having. Just finally, please use the chat function as you please. So ask any questions or share resources, programs, information, and your own insights into peer mentoring, because I'm sure people that are here are interested and know a lot. So now I will move on to our first speaker, which is Deborah. So Deborah Leon Wally will be providing some opening reflections about the value of mentoring relationships for young people. So Deborah is the founding director and operations lead at the Village Response Collective, where her primary focus is to find ways to support youth and family practitioners. Deborah has been a youth worker for over 20 years, initially starting out as a volunteer youth leader at her local church, where she discovered a love of working with young people and the community. Deborah's work has focused on developing supports for Pacifica and other young people in Aurora and Australia, including delivering peer and group mentoring services in secondary schools and managing operations for mentoring programs at the Village Trust. So welcome, Deborah. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today.
Awesome. Thanks, Pearl. I realised when I gave you that brief about myself that I should not put 20 years because I'm still only 20.
Yes, of course.
Yes, but thank you, Pearl. I really appreciate this opportunity to be able to share with you this morning. As Pearl has mentioned, my name is Deborah Leaone Wally. I am from the Village Response Collective, a non-for-profit organisation to support community, in particular Pacifica community. Our heart is to make sure that they have support and have a seat at the table where Pacifica issues are discussed. If you can't tell already, I am a Kiwi by my accent, I'm sure. Don't hold that against me. But I was born and raised in Aotearoa, New Zealand, but I am of Samoan descent. And as Samoan, by nature, we are orators, we're storytellers. So I thought I'll share my reflections by sharing with you some stories, if that's all right with you all, because I think that's the best way to share my reflections. And then if we can go to the next slide, I wanted to go back to where it all started. You're probably thinking, oh my gosh, you're starting from the very beginning. Don't worry, I'm going to quicken this introduction up. But my parents were a huge influence in my life. My parents, Ulufale and Leaonai, they from a beautiful island in the South Pacific in Samoa. In the early 60s and 70s, there was a labor shortage in New Zealand. And so even though my parents didn't meet in Samoa, they had the same idea, was to move to New Zealand and be able to provide support for their families in Samoa. My parents did actually met in Auckland in a car manufacturing plant. So I'm not sure how they actually started their conversation. They may have seen each other across the assembly lines, fell in love, got married, and had us kids. But the reason why I share about my parents, because they created this worldview for me, a landscape that I think a lot of Pasifika families went through. They continue to support their families in Samoa. They opened their homes to family, community, their village, to come and stay, to be able to settle and move on to their own home. But that's what I saw. I saw my parents show such genuine care and support for people. And that was extended to our own local community and our local church as well. And so when I saw that, when I reflected back to that, it's of no surprise that my siblings and I have all ended up in community-based work in some capacity. But when we talk about my road to youth work, that came by a simple question. We were literally doing a road trip down to Matamata from Auckland. It's like a 2-hour drive out of Auckland, and we were driving down to a sports camp. It was a 3-day sports camp over a long weekend. It was my first time going to the sports camp, and I happened to be going with 2 good friends of mine who also happened to be the youth leaders at our local church called Zion. And as we're driving down there, they're telling me about Zion, and I'm thinking, oh, that's a nice story, and just smiling away. And halfway down there, they turn to me and they say, hey, Debs, we really need some help with Zion. Are you keen to help us out this year? And I looked at them, and my first thought was, nope. My first thought was like, oh man, I'll help at a soup kitchen. I'll go and help at Salvation Army, do a working bee, but not young people. It wasn't in my radar. And then I said, but they're such a nice couple. They're not the kind of couple that you say no to. So I said to them, you know what, give me the weekend. Let me think about it over the weekend. As we got to the sports camp, as I said earlier, it was my first time at the sports camp. I spent the next 3 days surrounded by young people. And I was just thinking, oh my gosh. And what I found at that sports camp, I was like, man, I've got a real knack at talking and engaging with young people. I enjoyed it. And I'm not sure if I enjoyed it because they made me feel young and cool. But what I did realize was like, man, this is something that I could actually consider. So on our drive back up to Auckland, I said yes. The couple laughed because they knew that I was going to give them a yes. And it was there that I started my whole training ground. And it was supposed to be a year, 3 years later, I was still in Zion, but it prepared me for what the next phase in my journey was going to be. When I started at Zion, there was only 20 young people, and those young people, their parents came to our church as well. There was an outreach that happened that same year I started, and that outreach it then reached out to a whole heap of new young people. So we grew from 20 to 60, but it came with different types of young people, different types of issues. It was no longer about, can you find the book of Psalms in the Bible? It was more so, are you okay? What's happening in your world? It was a different kind of engagement with these young people, but they prepared me for the next phase in my journey. And that phase came through a phone call. I got a phone call. I just finished my studies. I got a phone call from a good friend of mine who ran an organization called Affirming Works in South Auckland. They ran mentoring programs in South Auckland in secondary schools. She called me and she said, hey, Debs, we've just acquired a new school, but it's in West Auckland, and it happens to be your old high school. And he said, are you keen? And I said, yes, I am. There was no more no's. It was a straight yes, and I was keen to help out because it was my old stomping ground. And from there, I discovered new learnings and new things. And that's what I want to share with you this morning, my reflections on mentoring. If we can move to the next slide, please. And what mentoring did for me was a whole heap. It actually changed me, actually. Not only changed the young people that I worked with, but it changed the way that I delivered and changed the way that I was with young people. If we look at those questions as, why is it important for young people to have a mentor, particularly young people who experience disadvantage? I just think, yeah, it's important. Why? Because you could be the only person in their life, because when we're talking about disadvantages, we're talking about there's a lack of something, there's a lack of financial support, there's a lack of support in general, there's a lack of guidance, there's a lack of something. And as a mentor and providing mentoring programs, you become that safe space for that person and meeting them where they're at. I liken it to how Princess Diana, if you can recall some of the photos of her, she doesn't, when she's meeting a young person or elderly person, she doesn't stand and tower over them. She crouches down and meets them at eye level. And that was the thing that I learned quite quickly in mentoring, that I needed to change my posture so that I was meeting these young people at where they're at, that I wasn't another authority figure, because when you think about it, this young person's already got their parents, their older sibling, their teacher, their principal, all these people that are authority figure, but we are now as a mentor meeting them where they're at and not be another authority figure, but a genuine support and care for that young person. When we look at the means to build a sense of community, that's action. What I loved about mentoring, peer mentoring in particular, because that's where you get that in-depth conversation. Group mentoring is all cool because you've got a whole group of people, but peer mentoring for me was that's where you got to know the young person. And every time they shared something that I could grab and put into action, I would use it. I can recall a conversation I had with one young person. She said to me, I want to get into hospitality, but I want to be a barista. And I was going, oh, I know the home economics teacher. I don't know if that's what they call it nowadays, but I know the home economics teacher. She offers to teach senior students how to make coffees during her lunch break. The student was a junior, but I headed down to the home economics class and I asked her, can this young person come so that she can just start learning or watching the seniors do the coffee? She said, yeah, bring her along. So I had to take her a couple of times because she was very shy. But after that, she didn't need me to hold her hand. She just went. And putting that one conversation into action not only gave her confidence, but it expanded her safe space. It created a new support network. And how we say it grew her village. And we've all heard that saying, it takes a village to raise a child. The same goes with mentoring. I realized that with mentoring, you need a whole heap of people. It's not just you. You need a whole village of people to help this young person move or rise above their disadvantage. And then when we look at, how does it foster resilience and confidence? The fact that they've got someone in their corner, the fact that they've got someone that they can turn to, but not just you, the village that you help grow for them, builds their confidence and develops that resilience in their level of engagement. The hope is their level of engagement, especially in education, then also is developed. And when I reflected on all of this, on all of the things that I learned in my first year, being that safe space for the young person, putting into action the things that they spoke about to develop and help them with their support network in their village, and being that advocate for them, I realized that peer mentoring to me is a genuine eye-level, Princess Diana crouching level, action-driven advocacy tool to see beyond their disadvantage. It was really for us as mentors to support these young people to rise above it. We can't get rid of some of the disadvantages that they're facing, but what we can do is try and lift their eyes just a little bit higher so they can see above the disadvantages and see what the possibilities that are there. I hope my reflections are something that it can be taken away and learned, something that you can take away from what I've learned, especially in my first year mentoring, and something that I still use to this day. And yes, I could go on forever, Pearl, but I know I'm on some time. But please reach out at any time if you ever want to talk or share. I love coffee dates. So I'll put my contact details in the chat. But for all the mentors and all the youth workers out there working with our young people, kudos to you, and continue to do the work that is much needed in our community, especially with our young people. Even though I'm working in different spaces right now, youth is still my heart. Thank you.
Oh, Deborah, that was such a lovely way to start the session. Thank you so much. Beautiful reflections. Thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate it a lot. Wow. Okay. Well, hard to follow, Deborah, but I'm going to try my best. So we're going to move on to the panel discussion component of today, which I'm also really looking forward to hearing from some other brilliant people working in the space. So I will introduce our panelists. Firstly, I will welcome Adam Hansen from the Aurora Education Foundation. So Adam is a proud Noongar man from Bunbury, Western Australia, who calls the southwest of Sydney home. Adam is the manager of RISE at the Aurora Education Foundation, RISE being Aurora's initiative to redefine Indigenous success in education. So we'll hear more about that in this panel discussion, hopefully. Adam has been working with secondary schools and universities to help increase university admission rates among Indigenous students and communities, and is passionate about supporting young people to fulfil their educational potential through the power of mentoring. Thank you so much for being here, Adam, from New South Wales. It's very exciting for us in Victoria. Our second panellist is Ailsa Gibson-Sheridan, who has worked at White Line Youth since 2021, and White Line just recently merged with Kids First. Ailsa has predominantly worked on coordinating mentoring programs for young people at risk. Working in Melbourne's West, the first program, Breakthrough Mentoring, was a pilot employment program that paired community-based volunteer mentors with young people with barriers to employment. Ailsa then moved on to Community Connections, which supports young people transitioning from out-of-home care into independent living by providing mentoring and community connections. We'll hear more about community connections, hopefully through this discussion, but the program helps young people develop social skills, improve social wellbeing, build confidence, and expand their support network, and can link them in with a volunteer mentor. Our third and fourth panelists are actually from our very own Raising Expectations peer mentoring program, Game Changers. So Game Changers was established in 2022 to pair and connect care experienced mentors and mentees studying at TAFE University. So mentors support their mentees with a wide range of topics, including academic skills, study and career pathways, overcoming barriers to tertiary study, and reaching their educational goals. So our third panelist is Penelope, or Penny Smith. Penny is an educator, a qualitative researcher in public health, and a Game Changers mentor. Penny has a lot of qualifications, so I've kind of condensed this. So Penny has qualifications in education, applied science, public health, tertiary education, and is currently doing a PhD where she's exploring the experiences of newly arrived health practitioners of colour working in the Australian healthcare system. Penny also has many years of experience working alongside First Nations communities in various roles and is currently a volunteer advisor for the Aboriginal-owned education company, Wingaru Education. She's also a trained foster carer and provided respite care for some time before she embarked on her PhD journey. Penny also has a lived experience of out-of-home care and was wanting to stay connected to the space when she was referred to our Game Changers peer mentoring program by a friend. And our final panellist, Hajra Hanif, is a game changer, and Hajra is currently studying a Bachelor of Science, majoring in physiology at the University of La Trobe, and her strengths are creativity and gratitude. Love that. Hajra loves to meet new people and loves discovering new things every day. So welcome to all of our panellists. Thanks for bearing with me. So here's the good part. We get to have discussions. So Adam, I'm going to start with you. Could you tell us a bit about the program that you work on? How did it start? What does it focus on?
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, pal. First, I'd like to say thanks for the invitation and the opportunity to be here. It's a privilege, and I'm coming to you from beautiful Thurrock country in the southwest of Sydney, New South Wales, aka my garage slash office. I'm very lucky to be the manager of Aurora Education Foundation's newest initiative, Rise, redefining Indigenous success in education. We are in our second year of the program, technically our second year. And the reason why I say that is this is our first full year of delivering the program to our young people that we work with. The first year was setting up the program, recruiting schools and students and staff, and just getting the processes down pat and making sure that they're where they need to be. And for me, I was unsure or didn't know that it would take a fair bit of time to do that, and which it does. And I think it's really important. That's a really important thing to take note of, is you need to set time aside to set up those processes and to make sure that things are working correctly from the get-go, and that will make the process and the journey a little bit more streamlined and easier as you go along. And so a bit more about Rise Project. So what we aim to do at Rise over the next 5 years, Indigenous-led Rise team will work closely with approximately 800 Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander high school students to understand the best ways to encourage each student's own version of success through academic, cultural, and wellbeing support. The extensive data that results from Rise will establish a clear link between specific types of support and Indigenous student outcomes. This will be fundamental to improving educational outcomes of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander students, building a pipeline of Indigenous leaders and creating a platform for Indigenous-led advocacy and reform. And a big thing that I do like about being involved or being the manager of the Rise project is we have a good an extensive data and research team. We have a monitoring and evaluation team that sits alongside with everything that we do. And if anyone's gone through the ethics approval of getting your data and stats up to date, it's quite a lengthy process to go through. But for us, for our data to be, I guess, to maintain a quality standard of data, that's why we've gone down that path. And I've been involved with other programs where data or stats will come out and you go, where did these stats come from? And they're internal. Or they've come from the organization, and that's fine, that's okay. And it's new for me to be part of a program that has an extensive data and research or monitoring and evaluation team that sits close by alongside the project delivery of the team. How Rise came about is that Aurora Education Foundation high school program had been around for about 5 or so years, with getting some really, really good results. Those results were young people involved with the program were twice as likely to finish year 12, and I think it was 3 times more likely than the national average to go into university. And
Woo.
so, yeah, it was really cool. So we wanted to see what was working, what part of the program was working well in the high school program. Was it the academic enrichment camps? Was it the tutoring? Was it the mentoring? Was it the access to Rise elders? Was the scholarship support? Was that part of the success? And so Rise was born from basically doing variations of the high school program and seeing what's working well, and where we can be better with delivering certain things as well. And so Rise delivers 2 variations of the high school program. And those variations both include tutoring. So tutoring, what we've found, it's a funny one. Tutoring, some families and some young people take the opportunity, and some don't. I probably would have been in the not taking up the opportunity when I was at school, but study has shown that tutoring is super important. And the other variation of the program involves mentoring, and that's a big part of what we do. And so with our mentoring, we work with Indigenous high school students, and our mentors are all Indigenous people themselves. So the reason why we've gone down that path, like the analogy that I always use is like, I'm a rugby league tragic growing up playing rugby league as a young fellow. And whenever I had the opportunity to listen to other sports people come into school or whatever and share their story, it was awesome. It was cool. But when the rugby league players came in, I always just pepped up and listened a little bit more and was drawn to them a little bit more. And I kind of see it the same way when we're having our young people, our Indigenous young people come into the program, when they hear that there's another, their mentor will be an Indigenous person. And our mentors, they're a lot younger than myself. And they're not too far removed from school themselves, so they have that I guess understanding and connection to our young people. So yeah, that's just a little bit more about the RISE project and the way that is delivered.
Thanks, Adam. That's so important. I think that will be a theme that we pick up on today, is having that that connection with someone who understands your experiences and has a similar background. So it's really important, and yeah, keen to learn more about RISE. So thank you. Ailsa, would you mind sharing what the Community Connector program can offer in terms of mentoring and why that's important for young people with a care experience in specifically?
Yeah, sure. So Community Connections is kind of a two-pronged program. One is we support young people who are transitioning into out-of-home care. We can link them into different community activities. So they may want to join a footy team or an art class or get a job, so we can help them with that. The other side of that is the mentoring, which is where we'll match them with a volunteer mentor from the community. So we'll source mentors ourselves. They'll all be volunteers, so we'll train on board and then match them with a young person. And what they do is really dependent on kind of what the young person wants to do. So as we know, no young person is the same. So it's really based on, it's led kind of by the young person. So some of them might go out, play a game of footy. Some of them might go for a walk, have a milkshake at the shops. Some might kind of look into, getting a job and stuff like that, or kind of all of it. So it's pretty broad, and every match is a little bit different. And I think that what's really amazing about mentoring and what we've heard from our young people, particularly from a care background, is that it's someone who's volunteering their time and they're not getting paid for it. Everyone that we work with, there's kind of care teams and case managers and things like that. And so often there's kind of a high turnover, and people, at the weekend, they won't be available because they're not working. But a mentor is someone who's there that really wants to be there. And for our young people, that's super, super important. And they've kind of mentioned that a lot. We've also heard, that having a mentor is just really cool because it's someone to talk to, someone to bounce ideas off, someone who, while we know that as Adam said, having someone who does kind of, you do have similar interests, or you do kind of know what you're talking about with a similar background. Sometimes having someone from a completely different background is also great, because you can get a completely different kind of experience and idea and viewpoint and stuff like that. So it's pretty cool. And so there's a lot of ways that you can kind of do mentoring. And so this is the way that we're currently doing it. We are looking at doing some different mentoring. At the moment, what we do is called formal mentoring, where, it's quite structured and formal. As coordinators, we'll set up the mentor matches, and they'll meet roughly 3 hours a fortnight. In practice, probably about once a month. But it is quite formal, even though what they do might be informal in those sessions. But we're looking at kind of changing it up a bit. And we've done some research into different mentoring practices to see what's going to work well, what has worked well here and overseas, and how we can incorporate that into our mentoring model. So I'll probably bang on a little bit more about that later on, but it's pretty exciting. So we're looking forward to it.
Thank you, Ailsa. Keen to hear about that. Yeah. I think we might have a question focused on that, so save it for that. Adam and Ailsa, this is for both of you. So, and really happy for you to just jump in and bounce off each other here. Why do you think mentoring can be an effective way to support young people, particularly engaging in education? So comparing it to a more kind of formal support service that might happen within an organisation with workers, why is mentoring different? And why is it more effective?
Yeah, from my side, I think, as I touched on before, it is really, kind of having that volunteer there. But I think it's just really great because you can kind of try different things, so when there's kind of workers and things like that, there's often kind of goal plans and case plans and things that you need to do. But with mentoring, it's a lot more relaxed, and you can just kind of try things without having pressure and so on. And I know that one of my mentor matches, the young person was really interested in both finance and construction, and his mentor was in, ironically, construction finance, so kind of doing finance behind big building things. I still don't know what he does, but he was able to get work experience there for 2 weeks, which he was stoked about. And when he kind of got there, he realized that he did not want to work there at all, which is great, because now he can tick that off the list and kind of he's moving forward to just working in construction. But, doing something like that was such a nice, easy, relaxed way of kind of trying different things. Which, is just, kind of takes pressure off it, I think.
Absolutely. Thanks, Ailsa.
Yeah, and I think that's the important part of it for me, is allowing our young people to be relaxed and to be comfortable. And sometimes that can take time when you're building those relationships. So keeping it very simple to begin with, getting to know each other, all that kind of stuff. And then once that happens, once you've broken down those barriers and get to know each other a little bit better, then you can start really getting to understand with a young person what the issues are for them. There could be complex issues, or there could be just very minor, or it could just be a young person just wanting to talk, and having that person, that safe space to bounce off. And from my perspective also, and with what we do in the RISE program, is we have quite a big cultural element to it as well. So when we're working with Indigenous young people, a lot of Indigenous young people just want to learn more about Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander culture, and about their own culture and what that means to them, and what that looks like, I guess, traditionally, and then also what that looks like in today's society. And it is different. I guess it's quite a little bit different in today's society, and so just getting our young people, helping them understand what that looks like, and making them feel comfortable in their own skin. And I think it's really important that if you're strong in identity, then you're strong in self. And that's something that we definitely focus on, and mentoring is the perfect avenue to get those conversations happening.
And so I'm just going to ask a follow-up question here. So when you're strong in identity, you're strong in self, do you think that helps, when you're trying to get engaged in education, or complete high school, or get involved in university?
Yeah, look, I think in all aspects of life, if it's finishing school, like if you're comfortable in your own skin, then you're more likely to be able to navigate life's challenges a lot better. Like for me, I probably didn't have that skill set when I was young person at school, and so when someone challenged my identity or whatever it may be, I used to react with fists or violence, and I've now learned as an adult that that's not the way to go. And so some of the experience that I share with my young people is there's better ways to navigate those systems, and I think one of those is getting to know yourself first, and getting to know your community and your people, and a little bit more history. And once you get to know that, or strong in identity, I think it does make it a lot easier to navigate those challenges in life. And I also think that just trying to remember what I was going to say. I also think it's once you come across those challenges, I think anything that's put in front of you can, if it's finishing school, or going on to university, or getting a job, or whatever it may be, I think once you're strong in identity, then you can do anything.
I agree. Thanks, Adam. That's great. Penny, sorry, it doesn't look like I'm looking at you on my end, but it's because I've got two screens, so apology, everyone. Penny, really excited to hear from you. So you're a mentor on Game Changers. Why did you join, or what attracted you to being a mentor on Game Changers?
I think you said in my little bio that I had done the foster care training, and I'd had such an incredible time doing some respite with some young Yorta Yorta boys and spending a lot of time at the skate park and the swimming pool, which was amazing. And then I got into a PhD and it changed what I could do. And I really wanted to continue kind of like this kind of contribution. And my fellow VU student and friend, who's now part of this team, she told me about the program, and so then I desperately attempted to convince Ursula that I should be considered. And after some weird miscommunication, because it's taken me a long time to work out that I had experience out of home care, because the word adoption I had somehow thought they were two different things. So then once I convinced Ursula I should be considered and I participated in the training, I was like hoping so much that I'd be able to have a mentor-mentee relationship, but I'd kind of assumed it was going to take a while, because, you know, matching is so specific and needs to be kind of carefully thought through. And I understood as a researcher and the design of this project, well, this program was around evidence-based and lived experience. So I was a bit like, when will it happen? And when Ursula connected me with Hajra, and she was like a La Trobe student, and I'd been at La Trobe, and she was in the north, and I'd lived in the north, I was like so excited. And so I think for me, when I was listening to Adam and Ailsa answer before, I think the really important thing for me is that volunteering is about choice. And so this is such an important choice for me to be able to meet with Hajra as often as she wants to. And it's super easy. Like for me, this whole process is super easy. I was listening so carefully to what Deborah said before, and when she talked about meeting them where they're at, and I think one thing I wanted to really add was the kind of like highlighting Deborah saying no need for another authority figure. Like for me, I just want to be in Hajra's corner and I want to do whatever she wants to do. And I'm just lucky that she likes me and we have a really, really good time. And that one of my goals is to continually demystify the system, because I know this system inside out, and it's the only reason I've done so well in higher education is because I know the system. And so it's a choice for me to do mentoring. It meets my passions, but more importantly, it's just like any secrets I can tell her, any tricks, that's what I want to do. And I would say one really quite amusing thing, awkward thing from the whole session is that we had been pronouncing her name wrong from the beginning. And because she's so nice and polite to Ursula and I, it took a little while for, like, we were building up the trust. And I think for me, it was this big moment of trust was when she was like, so anyway, that's not actually my name. I was like, oh my gosh. But for me, it was a really, like, it was uncomfortable, but it was a great moment of signifying that we had started to connect in a much more trustworthy manner, I think. So did I answer your question, Pearl?
You absolutely did. And I think you picked up on something that I love to talk about, which is knowing the system, right? Like higher education, TAFE and university is such a complicated space. And that's something we're really passionate about in raising expectations. So I'll try and keep this short, but it's complicated. And if you don't have that kind of more formal network of support through family and through a huge community, like a lot of young people do, that kind of, it's just information that they're given as part of growing up, it can be so scary and intimidating. So I think that's why mentoring relationships are so important to support that engagement in education, is because education isn't just something that's straightforward and simple. So I think you touched on something wonderful there, Penny. Thank you. Hajra, I'd love to hear from you. So you meet regularly with your mentor, Penny. What has it meant to you to have someone you can rely on for that guidance?
So thank you for having me and giving me this opportunity to share my experience. It means a huge amount having Penny around and helping me, like whenever I need help or support or just any just any advice or any guidance. I actually met with the Raising Expectations and Game Changers program while I was having a really tough time through uni. So I was the first in the family to actually attend uni in Australia, and not knowing the system, not knowing how to get through everything was kind of overwhelming, and not really knowing what to do. And even through uni, like, we get told about all these services, but we never actually get connected to anyone specifically. And every bond that we make through the classes, they don't actually last throughout the whole duration of our degree, which is always really hard, because it's hard to open up to someone and knowing that they're probably not going to be there for your next couple of years or your next lecture, or anything like that. But yeah, so I came across Penny and Game Changers program, and it was a life changer, I think, because it just happened to be like that extra support that I needed, the extra clarity that I needed of where I wanted to go, what I wanted to do, and what my options were. So it feels, usually, like, at that time I was just stuck in that little box, and I was like, where do I go? Who do I go to advice for? But yeah, it just happened to work out, and I'm so glad that I met Penny, and we're so much alike. We're just when even through our sessions we just chat on, and the hour's already over. But yeah, it's such an amazing opportunity to have. And Penny, or any mentor you may have in your life, it may not seem that big, or sometimes it might be hard to open up to someone you don't know at first. But once you get to know them, once you get to talk to them a bit for a few sessions, you realize that the mentor, they can listen without any judgment, which is one of my big one thing that I really love about this Game Changers program. So yeah, it's been amazing so far.
Thank you, Hajra. It's really important to hear from you, and you've got some really good insights here, and I'm sure people finding that really interesting and valuable. Penny and Hajra, let's keep talking. So what kind of, would you mind sharing what you typically cover in a mentoring session? But just very generally, you don't have to go into details, but what do you talk about? What do you cover?
We often start by me asking questions about what creative and fun things she's doing, because she is incredibly talented and I'm quite nosy. I'm a Filipino, so I just kind of want to know what everyone's up to. And luckily for me, she's willing to share it. So we do start there, don't we, Hajra? We start in we were talking last week, I think, was it last week in this session we were talking about, what's it called, Hajra, the art on the hand?
Oh, henna. So I actually had henna on my hand when I was talking, and Penny realized that I had henna, and she was like, who did this? So it's just general conversations that just we pick up on, and then we just go through, and then we do get some work done. Like, we do make a list, and we do get stuff
Ursula,
done.
we get work done. We're letting you know, just so you know.
Yeah. So and it's mainly, like, to be honest, it's mainly just what I want to do, what I want to focus on, and what I want to keep. Like, for example, if I have assignments and I need to get them done, I can ask Penny for it, for help, or just even to edit my work, or have a look, or read through, or just give me some suggestions, feedback on it. So it's really just up to the mentee what they want to focus on. And then the mentor is just really support all the way through.
Yeah, like one of the things that what we do is we kind of brainstorm ideas before we make a decision about what we're going to do. And one of the things that I had suggested, which Hajra was supportive of, is we worked on her LinkedIn profile, which was a thrill for me. I really enjoy fixing LinkedIn profiles if anyone wants me to get involved. So that's one of the things we did. But I think one of the nicest things we did, Hajra, was when we did that year in review, because you had started talking about things you were
Yeah.
proud of. Yeah. Do we want to
Yeah.
talk about that?
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Like, we do small little activities, not realizing that they actually mean so much, because it was closer to my birthday, I think it was, and Penny was like, "Let's just look at how many things you've achieved throughout the year." And then we started to make a list, and I was like, in the back of my head, I was like, I've actually got something done, and I've actually learnt some skills." And you don't realize that until someone, or you think about it, or start making a list, and you can see it visually there. So yeah, I think one of those activities meant a lot, and it just shows that you've actually grown for the year. You haven't just sat there. Well, most people like me would have thought, "Oh no, I haven't done anything, or I haven't made any skills, or haven't made the most of my year." But just making that list showed me how much I actually have accomplished, and that's the main thing that I love about this.
I think the other thing, Pearl, is we're really lucky. We just like often will ask Ursula for help, or I think I can't remember their name, Hajra. Do you remember their name? The other person who
Ness.
Ness, yeah. So
Ness.
mentoring, I think sometimes mentoring is talked about just as the little dyad, but Hajra and I often ask Ursula for assistance or clarification, because I'm prone to confusing both of us. And also there's Ness at Latrobe, but we've also used My Networks as well, because Hajra's future professional goal, one of my friends works in that space as well. So we've really it's us, but it is also, I guess, to use Deborah's language, it is like we are building this village around us to kind of be able to support us as a little mentor-mentee relationship. And like, I don't know about Hajra, but I'm so grateful because Ursula like makes sure we're like on track, and that we have like kind of some really good supports as well, because I think that's important. And I think Ailsa has also kind of alluded to that as well, and Adam definitely has, around the kind of different parts of the mentoring connection.
Absolutely. Thank you. That's really, really interesting and great to hear. Right. So I'm going to go back to Adam and Ailsa. Are there any examples that you can share about maybe a young person that your programs have supported?
Yeah, I can definitely jump in here. I think generally across the board, mentoring and being involved in these types of programs is a good thing. So you can see the impact pretty much immediately. As soon as young people be part of a program and start that process, you can usually see the impacts pretty much straight away. An example that I can give, actually yesterday, we're in the middle of having our end of year family days. So we basically just get together, invite the families to come along for a picnic / barbecue in a park or a space close by. One of our young people who's in the program, he's a bit of anxiety. Even though he knew everybody there, I could see him, he turned up with mum and his older sister, and he had a bit of anxiety, and he was just looking over going, "Oh, I don't know anybody." And you could see him when his anxiety kicks in, as most young males do, we tend to transfer that into a bit of anger. And so one of our mentors just pretty much grabbed him and took him for a walk around the park, calmed him down. And then afterwards, I started kicking the footy with him. So simple things like that can help massively. And yeah, he was fine after that. But if you don't do those things, then those little issues can potentially escalate. And also you're just showing him healthy ways to be able to regulate his emotions and feelings. And I think for men in particular, that's something that I probably had trouble doing when I was that similar age, and I'm a lot better at now. Still not perfect, but a lot better at now. And just finding those pathways to an outlet to be able to let a bit of steam go. And yeah, he was good. He was good yesterday. Yeah, there's heaps of examples I can give, like of young people be part of the program. Then all of a sudden they think they're going to finish school now. They're going to finish school and go into university and be part of this program and that program, and wanted to be do amazing things. So yeah, I'm lucky enough I get to see that quite a lot in my role.
That's pretty cool, Adam. Pretty cool job you've got there. Ailsa, do you have an example that you could share?
Yeah, so one that I've been thinking of recently is a young person who was transgender. And they didn't know kind of anyone, you know, around them who was transgender or in the queer community or anything like that. And so obviously there was a lot of kind of stress and anxiety around that because they didn't have anyone to talk to. So we were able to match them up with a mentor who was transgender as well. And they were just really able to start building connections around that and just bounce ideas off each other and ask questions and find out about other ways of, you know, linking into the different communities and feeling a lot more supported. You know, this person was also able to get a job in hospo kind of through their mentor as well, you know, and start building up some independence and things like that. You know, and I think as everyone has touched on, the village is so important. And for young people in out-of-home care, they generally don't have that village. So it's kind of up to all of the people around them to start building those different people and those networks and, you know, being able to support them. Yeah, and I just think that's really cool. So I think we're all very lucky to be able to do what we do.
Absolutely. Thank you. Really important point there. I think the village theme that Deborah kind of set us up with has continued to come through in these conversations, and it's just, yeah, really important. So I have a couple of questions that is kind of for everyone, and I'm mindful that we only have a few, like 8 minutes left, no biggie. But I'm just going to pick some good ones. Hajra, I actually am going to direct one at you, if you don't mind. How has having a mentor helped you in your journey through university? What difference has Penny made?
So, as I said, you know, beginning of my whole university year, I didn't have anyone to go to for the support or just even to find my way through uni. But since I've met with Penny, it's more of, you know, it's I can go to someone and rely on them for the sorry, is everyone?
That's okay. I think your internet might be a little bit patchy, but we can hear you and see you.
Okay, everyone just froze, so I thought, you know, something's gone wrong.
No, we're here.
Yeah, so I can go to Penny with I can go to Penny and then, you know, ask her for suggestions and she'll give me ideas. So it means a huge amount to me. And it's really changed the way that I'm taking university. Like, you know, I'm kind of more organized with what I'm doing and I have a clearer vision of where I want to go, what my options are. And I think many university students would love to have this same opportunity because even in my most of my classes, a lot of the students just don't really know what they're doing, as in what they want to do after they finish the year, or what they can do to make their self stand out. But having Penny on board and on support with me, I can actually get all of those extra, I would say, extra tips and tricks, just like a LinkedIn profile. At uni, we just get taught how to make.
Oh no, internet. Oh,
But getting the real insight on how to make it stand out, make myself stand out from everyone else.
that's
Is
awesome,
everyone
Hajra.
here? Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's all good. We heard you. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. I love hearing from you, Hajra. It's great. So here's one to kind of last question, perhaps. So for everyone, are there any specific models or frameworks that you found useful that you would recommend others look into? So this can be as simple as a principle or an underlying belief that you use in your mentoring program or as a mentor. Yeah, keen to hear what the group thinks.
Yeah, I can jump in this one, Pearl. what I think is important is the commitment from the mentor or the organization. And I think like, for example, with Rise, where we're committed to working with a young person from the whole educational journey from year 8 to year 12 and a year outside when they finish school. So I think that's really important, and it's really important to make note that if you make that commitment, try and make it long term, because we all know that mentoring, it does. You can have one mentoring session and get the benefits of it, but if you have 1,000 mentoring sessions, you're going to be so much better for us. So I think that's probably an important thing for me, and probably a nice way to get the conversation kick started.
Thanks, Adam.
I would say that my observation of game changers from the very beginning was it was clear, obviously because I come from doing far too much research, but it was very obvious to me that game changers had been designed from an evidence-based viewpoint, but also from a lived experience viewpoint. So because I've been working alongside and supporting First Nations communities, it's very it's very front of mind. Is this informed from a lived experience point of view? And I was just so incredibly impressed because I think, and I'd said to my research team, we talk about the value of evidence-based and we talk about lived experience, and we struggle to talk about a well-resourced, well-designed and lived experience supported work. We like talk about that is what you've got to do, but you don't see it that often. And so being embedded inside Game Changers, I feel sorry for Ursula because I get very excited about this program because you can see that all three things are there: well-resourced, well-designed, evidence-based, but particularly the lived experience element has been incorporated in a genuine and thoughtful way, not as a superficial way. So I don't know what the magical underneath framework is, but that's what I can see. And I think our relationship, the way that Hajra and I work together is not just about the dynamic of our two personalities, it's because there is a supportive structure underneath. And the other thing I would say is that as a person of colour, some of the training I did for foster care was really isolating and uncomfortable as a person of colour. And I did not find that at all with Game Changers. So I think that to me, there's some magical, fabulous stuff that is going on underneath that I can't see, but I am deeply experiencing. And I think it's evidenced in how the two of us are connecting.
Penny, that is a massive compliment to Game Changers and raising expectations. So thank you. I really very much appreciate that. And shout out to Ursula, who does a wonderful job on Game Changers. Ailsa.
Mine probably isn't as enthusiastic as Penny's. But what we've been doing a little while ago here at White Lion, or Kids First now, was a bit of a mentoring models project, just looking at different ways mentoring has occurred here and overseas, and looking at what's working, what's not, how we can all improve. And we can send this to anyone if you're interested in it. But what we're looking at doing is just kind of changing the way that we're doing some of our mentoring. So keeping our current kind of mentoring structure of formal mentoring, but looking at a little bit more of kind of group mentoring, which is basically how it sounds: get a bunch of young people, a bunch of kind of mentors, get them together and just kind of seeing how that develops, because that will then kind of have some of that peer-to-peer mentoring and, you know, a bit more support kind of going around. But something that was really interesting that we found that I would personally love to find out more about was youth-initiated mentoring, which is where a young person will identify a mentor from within kind of their community or kind of social networks. So all of the research is saying that it's brilliant and that when it works really well. But there's obviously quite a few kind of challenges to get to that point. So I know there was going to be a bit of a question around kind of what we might like to see next from the centre, and that's something that I would personally love to see, because ways that we can, you know, continue to support our young people and, you know, do it in different, more effective ways is always going to be brilliant. So yeah.
Thanks, Ailsa. Yeah, I'm really keen if you can share that resource that you were talking about. We'd love to share it with the people that are in the room today.
Yeah, great.
Thank you. All right, well, it's 11 o'clock on the dot, so I've done well to manage time. I just wanted to say a massive thank you to all of our panelists and also Deborah. Really interesting conversation, such beautiful insights from you, Deborah, that really set the scene well for a conversation. And each of our panelists have provided a very generous run through about what they think is important. And I hope everyone found that valuable. So thank you again. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon, or your morning rather, and we will stay in touch. Take care, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.